We just got to Homer, the end of a 4.5-hour drive, unloaded the kit. We're now boarding the MV Peregrine, which is the liveaboard boat we're going to be staying on for the next 3 weeks for the shoot.
And I just couldn't wait to see my first bear and get those initial nerves just out the way so I could then enjoy the experience and get on with the shoot.
Oh yeah.
Just woken up, it's 5 AM. I mean, it's an early start, but when you get mornings like this, you'll see why.
Had enough of us already.
This guy.
That's Patrick setting up the Zodiac to take us to land after breakfast. But what a view to wake up to.
As I mentioned, this time of year you're going to get around 18 hours of daylight, and that is great for us because when you're filming wildlife you want to film in the best light. Best light tends to be first thing in the morning, last thing in the day. Now that can be a very, very short period of time, but the beautiful thing about this time of year in Alaska, that golden hour stretches for hours and hours and hours. So if you're willing to get up early, you really can make the most of the beautiful light there. Now, the Katmai coast has some of the greatest tidal ranges in the world. Now, what that means is sometimes you're not necessarily just getting a rib right up to the beach. You may have a little bit of a walk. But this morning, I felt so privileged to be walking along this incredible scene. You're just seeing ripples across the beach, surrounded by volcanoes, this gorgeous light. It truly did feel like we were at the edge of the world, and seeing such magnificent animals completely in their element was such a privilege. And every day, whenever we had to do this walk, I didn't mind it because it gave me that moment to just reflect on what I was actually doing. You know, this was amazing. And so we repeated this over the next few days, getting the rib in, looking for bears, seeing where the best bear action was, going into that spot, seeing what we could film, coming out and leaving the next day. So we did the regular thing, went over into the meadow, scanned about. It might have been a bit too early for the bears that day, and so we then headed back down to the beach and did a little recce along each end, which this beach is bordered by cliffs either side. And so we just wanted to see what the ends of the beach looked like in case there was something amazing we could film there. When we got to the edge of the beach and we were underneath this huge cliff, Drew noticed that there was a mother and cub walking on the cliffs above us. And if I ever wanted to feel like I was in a bear city, like a bear capital, having bears literally all around you and above you, it was at that moment. That pair then disappeared over the ridge, and so we thought we'd go back to the meadow to see if we could pick them up on the other side. We didn't see them, however, as we made our way through the meadow, settled down to this beautiful bit of standing water, it was like a mirror had been put there for us. And on the other side of this water, there was a young female and a young male. Not necessarily a breeding age male, he wasn't big enough to compete, but the two of them were obviously enjoying one another's company, eating the sedge, just having a relaxed time at sunset. And it was an amazing thing to be able to watch. So we'd seen our first sort of bear pair, as it were, but we were here to see the big guys. We were here to see the big male bears. And it's late May, which is actually very early on in the bear season in Alaska, or for Hallo Bay. But we did this specifically because we wanted to see male bears competing for females. Now, if you go too late on in the season, bears have effectively figured out who is who and figured out who's boss, who's not to be messed with, who can be pushed a little bit. And so they figured out the dynamics of that year in the bay. We wanted to arrive before they'd figured that out so we could see the competition and the jostling for position between males.
There you go. That was all needed.
No, I'm fulfilling my artistic vision here. Slider.
And so we packed up the kit and once again headed back to the boat.
Flounder!
Really good.
We're never gonna make it to Kodiak like this. That little 8-foot Kodiak I have, I'll cruise around the year.
One of the mornings when we arrived at the bay, we stepped over the ridge and we found a grandfather trail. Now, this is a bear path that has been walked by individuals for hundreds, potentially thousands of years. Now these bears, they walk the same line, they put their feet in the same footprints, and they create this amazing path through the wilderness, which is literally generations old. And so we walked through that ourselves, and I was amazed at the distance between the steps. The animals here are absolutely massive. After filming for a few days out on the meadows, we hadn't really got the action we were looking for. It was still really early, we hadn't seen any big males yet, but we knew that the females with their older cubs were going to be heading to the mudflats at low tide to clam, and so that was one of the things that we also wanted to film. The mudflats are also a crucial part of why the bears are actually coming to this bay. When the tide goes out, it reveals a whole other variation of foodstuffs for these bears, specifically clams, and so that's a big part of the reason why the bears come to Hallo Bay. They come for the sedge, and sedge is incredibly high in protein, and so they are mainly, eating and chowing down on that. But when the tides do go out, they make the most of it, and they come out and sniff out razor clams. And so we headed out one of the days on a beautiful sunny day out to this huge expanse of mudflats, and we spotted a female with her cub who may be 2 years old. And as we watched this mother and her cub clam, it was awesome to see just how dexterous they are and how delicate they can be with these huge claws that they have. One of the things you can tell the difference between a black bear print and a brown bear print, because a black bear print, the claw marks are quite close to the pads, if you imagine a bear print in the mud, and the little dots of claws are just in front of where the pad ends. A brown bear, that gap between the pad and the claw tips is much, much bigger. And it's amazing how they use this tool to prise open these razor clams, which are an incredibly important source of protein. The bear's main objective at this time of year is to put on weight. And between May and July, bears can put between 40 kilos and 60 kilos on in weight, and clams are a huge part of that process. But then all of a sudden the dynamic completely changed. It was very calm and relaxed with this female and her cub, and all of a sudden they disappeared, and a much younger female had appeared with a male behind her. Now, this wasn't a huge big male, but he was a teenager, maybe 7 years old, 8 years old. He was just getting to that stage where he's thinking about wanting females and thinking about competing, but he was nowhere near the size of competing with these larger males. However, there were no other large male bears in the area, so it was him following this female. And that's what these brown bears will do. A male will follow a female for countless amounts of days until they eventually mate, or she disappears and goes off with another bear, or a bigger bear comes and displaces that male. And there was another young female bear following us, just wanted to check out exactly what was going on with this male and this other female. However, this young male did not see it that way. He was pumped, and as we became the object between this young female and him, he beelined straight towards us, and he was not messing around.
She's running.
He is chomping.
Hey, close enough, buddy.
He's gonna chase her, I think. It's okay, it's okay. You're all good, buddy.
And what was amazing for me in this situation, Drew clocked that evolution of situation instantly. He instantly saw the female bear was walking behind us. This young, pumped up male is heading straight towards us. And so he handed me my camera equipment that he had been holding for me, just so he had his hands free for the flare, and he monitored the situation. And as the situation progressed, Drew altered his behavior. And so depending on the proximity of a bear, its attitude, it changes how you interact with that bear. And Drew knows this better than anyone. So this young male bear was heading straight towards us. He wasn't necessarily wanting to fight at us or wanting, he was just in that mode. He was just ready for anything. And so Drew would not let a bear in that state of mind get too close to us. He takes a completely different tone than he did with the female on the first day. He stood upright, he makes a decent noise, he whistles, he assertively says, "Hey buddy, close enough."
Hey, close enough, buddy.
And that was a signal to that bear like, okay, I've tried to intimidate these guys, but they're not moving. I don't really want any altercation. So I'm just going to walk around you and actually pursue the bear I was looking at in the first place. And when that bear walks past us, you can hear one of the sounds that they make when they're in this state of mind, and it's a jaw pop. And it's like a pop in the back of their throat. And it really is an amazing sound to hear firsthand. As that other bear swung round, all three of them actually calmed down and they all just carried on clamming. Very quickly though, the tide rushed in, and it's amazing the speed that that water comes into that bay, and that very quickly put an end to our filming.
I think we're gonna have to go and pack the stuff up.
Later on that day, as we walked down to where the boat was picking us up, we were discussing that interaction with the young male, and it really felt like the breeding season was kicking off. And we were all very, very excited to see the big male show up. But what you can hear is the roaring of these two males as they come face to face.